Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Strickland. I'm your host, Shwin and Prez, and this is episode 504. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host Prez, that is @_Presidente on Twitter, @PrezAdente on Blue Sky. Prez, how are you doing on this Thursday evening?
Coming to you live from an unprecedented wild goose hunt never before seen in the history of basketball. Historic things happening right now that are not the NBA Finals, but the Knicks. One of a kind coaching search.
Yeah, never has a coaching search ever been done before.
The
So this
most
is very
unique, unprecedented thing about living in America in 2025, very clearly.
definitely today, too. Yeah, definitely the most unprecedented thing that happened here against coaching search. All right. I don't know what the hell that was. But before we get started, we do have to make a few announcements. First, being that Strickland has a YouTube channel where you may be watching this podcast. If you are not done so already, please hit like, subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment. That'd be a huge help to us. The Strickland also has merchandise you can find on our website at www.thestrick.land. There's a link that'll take you to the merchandise store. There's all kinds of cool stuff on there, like t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, coffee mugs, water bottles, you name it, we've got it. The Strickland also has a Patreon, which you can subscribe to. There are a number of different tiers. There's a $6 tier that gets you access to Strickland, the podcast that I was certified as Prez. You also get access to Take Me Obvious Bozos, a podcast hosted by Andrew Steele, aka Doug, along with Zach Blatter. And you get access to the Strickland Discord where the conversation never stops. There are further tiers. There's a $9 tier that gets you access to Strick and Roll, my no longer solo pod that I host now with YC. You also get access to wonderful premium articles by Matthew Murdo, one of the best in business. And you get access to Strickland NFL, which you guessed it is a podcast by the NFL that is hosted by Constantine Metricos and Desmond Novak. There are further tiers, a $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, and a $100 tier. Let's go with a variety of additional benefits, like listening on a pod recording and merchandise discounts, even potentially hosting a podcast alongside yours truly one day, whether you choose to subscribe or not. None of this would be possible without you. So without further ado, let's get started. Yes, the Knicks are going through a coaching search right now. I'll just give the broad strokes updates that we know for sure. They requested permission to interview Chris Finch, Ime Udoka, Jason Kidd, Quinn Snyder, and Billy Donovan. They were denied on all of those. They also have registered interest with Mike Brown and Taylor Jenkins, with whom they will have neither of whom they'll have any issue interviewing because both are unemployed. They're apparently going to cast a wide net, which means talking to assistant coaches, as well as those in the college ranks, head coaches in the college ranks. At least that's what's been reported. We'll see who else shakes out in the interview process. All I will say, and I'm going to throw it to you because I've already talked a lot about the interview process and just generally what's going on there with Stacy in the last pod. But I think the way that this has been reported upon is kind of embarrassing and just very disingenuous. Like, do I think what the Knicks are doing is probably unorthodox? Yeah, I do. And I do think that, like, is there some element of, like, let's kind of push some buttons and see if anything shakes loose? Yeah, I do. But if their goal is to cast a wide net, and you've got to understand, like, Tom Thibodeau was a successful coach in New York. He was, like, that's unequivocally true. He was a successful coach. They went to the Eastern Conference Finals. You're not trying to upgrade on a bad coach. You're not trying to upgrade on David Fizdale or Jeff Hornacek or Kurt Rambis or Derek Fisher. You're trying to upgrade on an actual NBA coach, a guy who's won a lot of regular season games. And, you know, whatever the criticisms and misgivings are, this is not an idiot. This is not a dumb guy. This is not an incompetent coach. So it makes sense to cast a wide net. And it makes sense to knock on doors and see if somebody says, yeah, I'd be interested. Or more importantly, see if a team is like, hey, yeah, you can interview this guy. And, you know, I again, do I think it's conventional? No, obviously it's very unorthodox. I don't deny that at all. I don't know that this constitutes incompetence. And also I will say that I think everybody loves process over results until it's time for that to stand on that. And you can be a results oriented person. There's actually there's merits to both concepts, right? Process over results, results over process. There's merits to both of those things, because process without results doesn't matter either. You can have great process, like, take a look at any sports team ever that's like, yeah, let's rebuild and let's get all these picks and whatever. And it's like, yeah, that's a great process. You got to actually build a fucking team at some point. If you do that and don't build a team, then it doesn't matter that your process is good. The results aren't there. So it has to be both. But if you're going to say, oh yeah, process, you got to judge the process more than the results, like the underlying numbers, and look, you got to look under the hood. Look under the hood. If you want to look under the hood, we can do it. It shows you. It'll show you. The Knicks had a 0.0 net rating in the playoffs. They literally scored the exact amount of points that they gave up. Go through the last 10 years of NBA history and tell me how many conference finalist teams had that type of underlying data. Tell me how many conference finalist teams started a lineup that was pretty much bad for like the last 5 months of the season and was by far their worst lineup for the majority of the playoffs before they changed the starting lineup. Tell me how many teams did that. Tell me how many teams saw their three-point attempt rate, which had been top 10 in the league for multiple seasons prior, crater to 20. I think they finished 27th. I'll have to look that up. But they were dead last in the league after January 1st with starting a stretch five, starting arguably the best stretch five in the NBA. Tell me how many, you can do, how many teams have shot the number of mid-range jumpers that the Knicks did. I personally don't necessarily have a problem with that. I'm just trying to give you an idea of like, hey, if you're talking about process over results, these are the type of things you have to look at. How many teams, tell me, like, again, how many teams give up the type of transition points we saw the Knicks frequently give up all season, became a theme throughout the playoffs, and was arguably the biggest problem for them in their series against Indiana. You can basically say they lost that series because of that one single element. How many teams lack floor balance all season and don't do anything about it? How many teams don't try anything schematically or rotationally throughout an entire season and then do both in the middle of the postseason against the stiffest competition you're gonna face? You're not gonna see that across the board. And that doesn't mean being critical of those things, even if it's highly critical. If you're sticking to basketball, being critical of those things is not wrong. It's not that doesn't mean that you're saying Tom Thibodeau is an idiot. Now, the people that say Tom Thibodeau is an idiot, that the Knicks have, they've won totally all the time in spite of Tom Thibodeau, that's an overstatement and it's wrong. And I'm sure I've said some shit along those lines too, especially this season. That's wrong. Do I think that their success this season was more because of the talent on the roster that was assembled? Yeah, I do. But I don't think that you get to the point that the Knicks are as an organization if Tom Thibodeau himself was this massive hindrance. I think there are things that I think there's some collateral damage that comes along with Tom Thibodeau as your head coach. But guess what? I think there's collateral damage that is caused by any head coach because no head coach is perfect. Eric Spoelstra is not perfect. Steve Kerr is not perfect. Again, you can go on and on and on. These guys are not perfect head coaches. And that comes so to bring it all back. Is it wrong that the Knicks fired Tom Thibodeau? I don't know. I guess it depends on your view. I kind of would have been okay with keeping him under certain parameters. But if he wasn't comfortable having an offensive coordinator, assistant coach, then that doesn't really fucking matter. It doesn't matter if he was okay with a scenario of having an assistant coach who was kind of put in place to be his officer. It doesn't matter if he wasn't comfortable with that. It doesn't matter if he wasn't willing to be open and receptive to suggestions of changing the lineup, changing scheme, whatever that may have been coming from data analysts, front office types, whatever. Doesn't matter if he wasn't willing to be like, hey, this game in February probably doesn't matter. Let me throw Ariel Hukporti in there for 20 minutes tonight and see what happens. Let me play Tyler Kolek 25 minutes tonight and see what happens. If he's not open to those things unless there are injuries that force his hands, these are things that can cause friction and cause issues with other people in the organization. And when you look at all of that in totality, all of it, I don't think it's crazy to determine, hey, you know what? We don't know who our next head coach is. We don't even necessarily have a guy that we're like, if we can get this guy, he is the guy. And not only determine who that guy is, but have easy access to hire that person. It's okay, because you can't keep a head coach you don't believe in anymore. Those are just two separate things. And if you believe Tom Thibodeau was still deserved to keep his job, and it was a wrong decision to fire him, okay, I'm fine. I'm fine with that. I think that's a reasonable place to land. Where I have an issue with is if you're acting like you don't understand the flip side of the coin, because there are times where I thought Tom Thibodeau deserved to be fired after the 2022-23 season. I think both of us did. And you know what? They didn't fire him. And I sat up here and I was like, I would have fired him, but I understand why they didn't, and I think it's reasonable. I think I even landed on that after the 21-22 season, which was a debacle. Where it's like, hey, I would have fired him. I guess, I understand why maybe you don't. I get that. But if you can't understand why he was fired, or why an organization, after 5 years of this guy who's been dealing with him every single day and know his idiosyncrasies and his habits and the good and the bad and everything in between that comes with him, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't, because I think either decision would have had merit. Again, there was a scenario where I was comfortable keeping Tom Thibodeau after the season. If that scenario didn't exist, then so be it. Maybe, who knows? For all we know, that conversation happened between the front office and Tibbs. It was like, hey, who knows? We don't know what happened in those closed door meetings. We know that players had meetings with them. I'm assuming Tom Thibodeau would have met with Leon Rose and James Dolan and the rest of the brain trust after the season. And maybe they were like, hey, look, these are things that were expressed, concerns were expressed to us. We want to, here are the steps that we want you to take to address that. Here are things that we would like to see change next season. Are these things that you are comfortable with? If he was not comfortable with that, and those are things that you felt needed to happen, okay, then shake his hand. Make sure he gets his $33 million that he's owed, guaranteed to him, and he can go on and move on with his career and his life. He's fine. I don't think we need to it's, again, we can show appreciation for Tom Thibodeau. We don't need to have a fucking, sob story every time somebody's critical of him. Give me a break. The guy's fine. And he's had a successful career. And he lost his job. Because you know what happens in competitive industries and sports especially? People can be good at their job and still lose it after a certain point in time. That's how it works. That's pretty much how it always works if you don't win championships. I'm sorry. And we're about, we might be on the cusp. Whatever you think about the Knicks' top talent, let's just put it this way. I think it's fair to say that Jalen Brunson's a top 10 player. That's I don't think that's a controversial statement. I don't think it's a controversial statement to say that Tyrese Halliburton's a top 10 player. But I don't think either guy's ever going to win an MVP. And guess what? The Pacers are 2 wins away from winning a championship. So we also need to start recognizing and adjusting to the reality that maybe we are in a league now where just because you don't have a top 3 guy, that doesn't mean that going to conference finals is that's the peak that you can achieve. Maybe you're capable of more. And maybe we need to start accepting that and understanding, therefore, when teams think coaching, especially in the playoffs, especially with how matchup oriented it is now, finding those margins, hitting those margins, making sure that you're masking your own deficiencies to the fullest and capitalizing on opponent weakness to the fullest. Maybe those things matter too. Prez, you're on me.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. The thing I wanted to talk about I mean, on these pods, I've mostly said my piece on my evaluation of Tibbs' time here. I'm also writing something. I haven't written a long thing that wasn't about the draft in a while, so congratulations, people. You're finally getting long form press back, unless our terrorist editor in chief breaks it into pieces, but we'll see. That's going to talk a little bit about, what we talked about in the last pod, which is his Coach Tibbs' divergence from the philosophies of the front office over time, culminating in a in the widest divergence we've seen this past year, culminating itself in the playoffs, and where the team dragged him to the Eastern Conference Finals, not the other way around. But I've, like I said, we already talked about that on the pod, or I did rather, and I'm writing about it. What I wanted to talk about regarding like the way the reactions to the coaching search have been weird to me is like it's been weird, it's been annoying, it's been frustrating, but today, like the chief emotion I've kind of associated with the reactions to the coaching search is honestly sadness. And I'll tell you why. Like, y'all know, Shwin knows, everyone knows, I don't like the Pacers. I don't like the Thunder. Now, that doesn't mean I can't respect what they're good at. I didn't like Manny Ramirez and Pedro Martinez growing up. As soon as they retired and Pedro became a regular on MLB TV, I fucking loved listening to Pedro Martinez because he's not giving the Yankees his shit and striking us out and throwing our coaches to the ground and shit like that, because he's really smart and he's understanding of the game was very great, and he's a objectively like great player. And that's kind of how I feel about guys like Hallie and SGA, where some of their theatrics in very different ways really annoy me. Pascal as well, actually. I fucking hate how he falls down so much, but like I I said it before, I think he's the most underrated player in the NBA, in the whole NBA, despite the shenanigans. And like these finals, I'm not even like hyper locked in, but like these finals have been good. And these players and their teams have achieved some real memorable stuff. Like I know it was crazy to me that the I don't know much about Vegas odds and all that, but apparently the Thunder had the same odds to beat the Pacers that like the Kobe Shaq that the '04 Lakers had to beat the Pistons. The Pistons made their upset, which to me is bonkers. I don't think the gap between these two teams was anywhere near the gap between the Pistons and the Lakers, on paper at least. And on top of that, you have like SGA capping a playoff run that's probably, as far as runs to the finals go, the most impressive guard run in, I don't fucking know, since Kobe Bryant or some shit. Like I might be missing somebody.
Steph Curry, 22.
Oh, I forgot about Steph. Not including Steph. Not including Steph.
Yeah, I agree, but also
I mean
I get
like hyper on ball kind of guard.
I get it. I also need people to never compare SGA to Michael Jordan again. That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fair.
Welcome to my TED Talk.
All right, boomer. Nah, you're right. But like, it's crazy. Like, and we've talked about like the reason that there's the hacking and the flopping and all that stuff that's annoying. But like, you're seeing a lot of people, including Knicks fans, being like, "Damn, this OKC offense kind of made after all, right? Like, kind of reminds me of the Knicks." And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, that's because there's a fucking guard who's nice as shit on ball and like a bunch of uncreativeness after that. The difference is like there's actually not. I mean, there's definitely more that the Thunder could do around him. They're not creative on offense, just like there's more that Knicks could do around Brunson. But I'm not even. I'm going a little off topic here. But my point is like you have SGA. Just he's a crazy player, man. Like the guy is. He takes so much focus from the opposing defense to stop or even slow down, not really stop. And in game 2, I thought like the guy was drawing quadruple teams and just like driving and spraying in a way that nobody in the league really does. And now the Pacers adjust to that, and Hallie on the other end is like, he's fucking annoying, but like the whole the whole idea of like the most turnover forcing his team of all time versus the best ball control pass first guy in recent memory is like fascinating to me. And you pair that with like someone like Pascal and Nemhard, who's fucking devil magic incarnate and has been the unsung hero of that team. He's basically been like an all-star impact type player for this whole run, and not just because of like hot shooting at the beginning, but because the guy fucking locks up. There's been entire stretches of basketball, multiple games where he's had to run more pick and rolls than Hallie, and he's done it without sinking. So like there's just a lot of shit to appreciate that's cool. But like what we're getting in the media is just like it's the culmination of years of just like clickbaity, like Hall of Fame legacy rings, Stephen A. Smith fucking bullshit, and it sucks. Like, you get no appreciation for these playoffs. You got a bunch of people who would rather make up things about the Knicks coaching search than talk about the fucking awesome basketball being played. And it's just fucking sad. And like, you get it because those people would rather make shit up about the Knicks coaching search or extremely exaggerate about the Knicks coaching search. You have a host of other people whose whole shtick is like, oh, what are the alleged experts saying about any given basketball topic? And now they think, well, it's not just Stephen A. Smith and Charles Barkley talking about the Knicks coaching search instead of the finals, but it's Zach Lowe and the people on the Ringer and all these
Zach
other
Lowe,
fucking
who's
talking heads online.
Zach Lowe famously definitely not a Celtics fan, no longer has any allegiance to the Celtics, even though he started writing on Celtics blog. He is 100% not a Celtics fan, and I just want to make sure we all understand that he's totally unbiased. He has no slant here. He has no connections or sources with the Celtics front office or front offices that would lead him to make any slanderous or disparaging comments about the Knicks that may be exaggerated. I just want to be very, very clear about that.
Thank you for this very important footnote of information, lest people forget. But what you get is this like weird ecosystem where the clickbaity coverage of the sport causes the people who otherwise would be actually interested in the sport being played to then like basically fall for a trap in terms of how the game is covered. Like there's people who are not gonna lock in and watch every fucking Pacers game, right? Like, of course, but like those folks might tune in for the playoffs because the playoffs are good basketball usually. And when they tune in and 3/4 of the quote unquote smart people are still talking about like, oh, the Knicks coaching search is a unprecedented wild goose. Like, what is a wild like they have the only coaching vacancy. They have a lot of time to conduct a coaching search. So while they're presumably setting up interviews, they're going for the least likely but high payoff options of asking out the hottest girl in the room. And there's no downside. If they turn you down, guess what? Your life is not in shambles. You continue on dating. It is what it is. Like it's not that serious. But like people
You're
think all of a sudden the standard for a coaching search is if you don't have an A plus immediate option lined up, then then it's an abject failure. But it goes back to all the stuff about Tibbs because there's people who who believe that Tibbs Tibbs firing was like unjust, even though we just got done with like many people of all stripes of basketball talking about like, wow, like he really didn't change that lineup till it was too late, huh? Like, oh, like he
oh
really
yeah
got out coached, huh? Oh, like he didn't try. Like the smartest writers who cover the opponents we faced were like, wow, I'm shocked he didn't put Deuce in at all ever, right? Like I'm shocked that we didn't practice, late game situations ever. Like there's enough out there that like you actually don't have to pretend he had some flawless coaching season or even close to it. And you also don't have to pretend that this roster isn't really fucking good like the rosters in the finals, right? Like we can watch the finals and say, wow, like yeah, like Aaron Neesmith is pretty cool. Ryan Nemhard's pretty cool. Guess what? They're not all stars.
I don't know
TJ
if I'd say that.
McConnell's pretty cool.
I'm not sure I would describe any of these guys as cool, but yeah.
I'm just saying, like the same people who are gonna say, "Oh, Tibbs was handicapped because of his fucking roster." Like, what are you gonna tell me? There's tremendous all-star talent on these two teams in the finals. No, there's depth. Yeah, there is depth. What a shocking fucking concept. Depth that played for the Knicks at one point. Depth that resembles the Knicks players at one point. Cason Wallace and Deuce McBride are basically the same player if you just give Cason Wallace layups where Deuce McBride has mid-range jump shots. Like among other things. So it just makes me really sad because like there's there's good hoops. Even I, a hater, am acknowledging this. Like there's good hoops on, great hoops even. Like watch the fucking hoops, appreciate the hoops. Talk about Ryan Nembhard, talk about Pascal, talk about Rick Carlisle and his assistants. Talk about the ways the Thunder's coach is screwing up. Talk about the way the Thunder defense is actually feeling pressure for the first time and not operating as well because of the Pacers. Like these are really interesting, fascinating storylines, right? Like this is the best regular season defense of all time, and elements of it are shaky now, right? Like, oh man, we've never seen a defense that was this far ahead in this way because we've never had a team this geared toward forcing turnovers that didn't have size. And now we're seeing that, like, well, like we've never seen the downsides of a potential defense like that because we've never seen any defense like that. Like we're like the things that are happening in these finals, many of these things have never happened before. We've never seen a team like the Thunder in terms of style or age ever reach this far.